Hi, and welcome to Fat Girl Talk. My name is Kay. I'm 23 years old and from the Midwest.
Okay. I'm Janice. I'm 28 years old and I'm from Texas.
I'm Maddie. I'm 27 years old and I'm from New Jersey.
I'm Aisha. I'm 23 years old and I'm from North Carolina.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and I am 25 from California.
Okay, and I'm Tina, and I am 34, and I'm from Florida.
Awesome.
Okay, so today we are going to be discussing, in the theme of Valentine's Day, our self-love journeys.
I'll start. I actually would like to say that I'm really fortunate when it comes to self-love because my mom is a fat woman and she raised me to love myself because she loves herself. She's been fat all her life. I've been fat all my life. And so it's always been a thing to love yourself in our household. It's never been a try to change yourself to fit the mold or try to change yourself to be loved by other people. No, as long as you love yourself, that will project outward. That's the message that she gave me growing up. So even like in middle school, I was a cheerleader. In high school, I was in the dance line in the marching band. I played tennis. In college, I did dance concerts. So it's always been about breaking that mold. Like I wasn't a skinny cheerleader. I wasn't skinny in the marching band. I wasn't like the typical in shape, but I still did physical things and I put myself out there. So I feel like my journey of self-love has been lifelong. It hasn't been like I've never like really truly felt that like sort of like self-hatred, like ugh, I'm so fat or ugh, I don't look like the other girls in high school. I've always been like, I love myself. I do, and I feel really fortunate, and I think that's why like I do what I do, working in a retail store designed for plus size women who want to be in fashion. It's because I love seeing that person come in who doesn't feel good about herself, who doesn't feel like her body is the representation of beauty in this country. And I love seeing that be lifted up. And so because I feel like I've been given this like wonderful thing that feeling of self-love that I can give to someone else who wasn't as fortunate as me.
Do you
So it's
think that like your self-love, and accepting and loving yourself at a young age, especially during middle school and high school when kids can be like very cruel, do you think that like was positive for other people? Like they saw you loving yourself so they had less of a reason to judge and like tease and things like that?
exactly. I mean, I was teased definitely. But like I said, the most thing they could call me was fat.
Hmm.
Like if they called me fat, I was like, yeah, I'm fat, but you can't call me ugly. You can't say I don't dress
Hmm.
well. Like the important stuff that was in high school and middle school. Like it's like being fat isn't like a negatory thing that makes all of your positive attributes negative. Like,
Hmm.
yes, I'm fat. Yes, I'm also smart. Yes, I love fashion. Like, yes, I can speak well. Yes, I'm fat, but I'm so many other things too. Fat is just the cherry on top.
Hmm. That's really awesome. I think for me, like this, it was like I went to from not straight to a self love journey, but it was just like a kind of not even like acceptance as like I am this body and I accept that, but kind of to just like a dealt with it. So for when I was in high school, I knew I was fat, and the number one way to not be made fun of for me was to just own it as best as I could, even though I didn't feel totally comfortable in my body at that point. If somebody made fun of me for being fat, I would be like, yes, like I am fat. It's not very offensive to say like your hair is brown. True. Like so, and then as I became older, I totally I started to accept and then love myself more as I saw, especially after joining Tumblr, like I was saying, certain people that I would see on Tumblr are so confident and so beautiful, and even the ones who like aren't totally confident but are still just like they're on their own self-love journey.
Yes.
That really helped me, and it's kind of what made me realize that I was on a self-love journey, because I definitely didn't feel like I was for a long time, even though I was already working towards accepting myself. It wasn't until I joined Tumblr and saw so many fat, happy, positive women that I really started to love my body. And so Tumblr is like my favorite place.
I think for me, I actually had a completely different experience. Growing up, I had very poor self-esteem, and I believed myself to be fat before I even was fat. I can't think of a time when I didn't think I was fat, and as much as I love my mother, I know it's because the way she viewed her body was the way I started to view my body. And so I spent a lot of middle school and high school trying to change my body. And when that didn't work, my coping mechanism was to be the funny kid and to make people laugh. And if people were laughing with me, they wouldn't be laughing at me. And I feel like as I got into adulthood, I really craved a sense of community, but I've always been the fat girl in my friends. I honestly, outside of the internet, I couldn't name any fat friends that I have. It just always panned out. I was always the fat girl. And so really the same experience. I think getting on Tumblr, one of the people who sticks out to me is a sex worker and body positivity activist, Little Miss Fats on Tumblr. I think that she was one of the first people I followed. There's also that Courtney girl who is from my hometown who I connected with, and it was kind of seeing fat women own their beauty and like their sexiness and being fierce, and then seeing all these people like fuss over how incredible they were. And it was just like I found myself wanting to be like these really awesome fat girls, even though I'd always wanted to be like the skinny girl that I was seeing on TV. And I think through that and meeting fat women like you all online, it just kind of clicked. And to be honest, it's something that's clicked for me within the past 2 years. You know, I've just recently started to become wholly comfortable and even in love with parts of me that I used to hate. So definitely Tumblr and having a community of people who looked like me.
Okay, you're gonna make me get emotional.
I didn't start my journey until much later. I'm 34, and I think it was when I hit like 32, and I moved back into the family house with two roommates who are both bigger, and they don't care. They're both fat and they don't care. And I was always very private. Like, even with my mom, I couldn't take off my shirt and change into another shirt in front of my own mother because, couldn't let anyone see my body. And they were very open and like, oh, we're going to walk around the house like half naked and stuff. And it finally like hit me like, who the hell cares what anybody else thinks, as long as like, I'm comfortable. And I'm not totally comfortable, but I'm learning. Like, since I moved down here a year and a half ago, I wear my bathing suit to the beach. I never would have done that before. And to just like, and, even to wear a bathing suit in the pool in my own backyard, I would have never done.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up, when I was in school, I was teased horribly, made fun of, come home crying. And my mom was bigger when she was younger, so it was always, you'd be so pretty if you were just a little thinner. You're such a pretty girl, it would be even prettier if you had lost weight. So
that is such a common thing.
I grew up with a lot of that, and, so now it's like, my mom is starting to understand, but like her best friend down here, doesn't understand her daughter is also fat, and she owns it. Like, she wears whatever she wants, and I'm just like, I wish I had that confidence instead of like always wearing pants to wear a cute dress. But I'm not quite there yet. But I'm trying. I'm getting there.
The bathing suit thing is big though. Like
Hey, look at you.
I bought a bathing suit for like the first time in 15 years, the year before last. So that is like a huge milestone.
One of
That
my
really
mom's
is.
friends had given me a swimsuit and it fit okay. And I would wear that, but I would always wear a shirt over it or even like shorts and a shirt. So I stopped wearing it. And then 2 years ago, my mom bought me one, a swimsuit, and it was just cute. It was a two-piece, but the bottom, in order to get the top to fit, I couldn't get the bottoms that fit. So I wear shorts with it, but still, it's like I'm letting my arms show, like in a bathing suit, and I would never do that before.
That's awesome.
And going
That's
to
why like swimsuits for all is such a great site because like you can buy a different size top than bottom. You don't have to buy like a bathing suit set together. So,
Because they know that fat women, we have some pear shaped, a little at the top, big at the bottom, and some like me who are big at the top, small at the bottom.
I have
I have
such
nothing
a
down
hard
there.
time with women's pants fit me. I can get a good fit. Women's shirts, I have to buy men's shirts because if I raise my arms, you're gonna see my whole stomach.
Right.
yeah.
Understandable.
Well, I had a really, really different experience from the rest of you. My mom is 5'4" and 125 pounds. So she's always been really skinny, really athletic, very strong. Um, I was, and I was born. I was born big, and I've always been that way. Um, in preschool, when I was 4 years old, I was put on my first diet. Yeah, I actually, when everybody else was getting three, peanut butter balls, I was only getting one, and I didn't understand why. I completely thought that, she was forgetting, and so one day I took them thinking that she just forgot about me, and but somehow I knew it wasn't what I wasn't supposed to eat them, but I shoved them in my mouth anyways, and from that process, I moved on to, being ate and being put in weight loss programs our um, through our medical stuff, and there, I learned that if my mom was I'm 8. Like if my mom's gonna cut my food away, I started getting up at midnight to eat, just to be able to eat. I'd get up when my mom was asleep, and as that, and even though that was going on, like I didn't really realize that anything was really wrong, with me. I just knew that I was hungry and I needed to eat, and for some reason, people weren't giving me food. So I had to find it myself. And then when I was a little older, probably like 10 or 11, I think that was my first experience with the whole Weight Watchers thing. But it wasn't until I was about 13 and like in middle school that I started to really realize, like, wait a minute, I'm different, and something might be wrong. And I started getting really negative on myself, and I started having a lot of life changes. My mom got married, I got brothers, all sorts of drastic things happened. My father was an extreme alcoholic, and so by the time I was 15, I was self-harming myself because of the things that were going on at home, and because I didn't like myself. I felt ugly, and I felt like, what's the problem with adding more ugliness to the body that I already have? And so what ended up happening finally was, I ended up going to a mental institution for a little bit, and then I came out and I really got close to the internet, and I started going on any social media thing I could get my hands on, and started looking like maybe something's not that big of a deal, because I mean at that time I was half the size I am now. I mean, I'm 300 pounds now. I was about 150, 160 pounds when I had these problems. So I tell you right now, I never felt uglier than when I was like 160 pounds. And so I ended up finding all of these social media sites to try to help me with my confidence, and through some of these body positive things, I ended up finding a darker part of the internet filled with men who had a preference for women who were bigger. uh, so I blew my mind. I was like, I cannot. There are people who prefer me this way. Like, blew my mind. And I ended up meeting and talking with a guy around my age range. I was 15, he was 15. We lived like 2.5 hours apart. We started talking a lot. Well, let's just say he was a little spoiled and got his dad to drive him to see me. And so he came and he visited me. And I remember getting super excited and actually putting on a shirt that fit for once instead of one of those oversized t-shirts my mom always tried to make me wear. And my mom, of course, was criticizing it. You know, you can't. What if your skin shows? And I was just overwhelmed by the possibility of this man, this boy, liking me for the way I was. And so he came and he visited, and things went well, and we kind of went back and forth. And so, and like teenagers do, eventually we had sex. And I got pregnant. I was 15 years old, and I was pregnant. And so that became a big part of my life. When suddenly all of these weight issues I had were not, or self-esteem issues I had, kind of took the back burner. It was all about, I'm 15, I'm about to have a kid. Abortion wasn't the right answer for me at the time. I don't think I could have psychologically handled that. And so I weighed out my options, and I ended up having a beautiful, beautiful baby girl named Aria. She's 9 years old now. And so I went ahead and I had her, but even at 15, 16 when I had her, I ended up getting a couple of weird remarks from doctors, things that weren't going to make me feel good. Some of them were related to the fact that I was a teenager. Some of them were related to the weight I was gaining. I remember I had a doctor say something about how I had a map to China on my belly because of all the stretch marks.
Wow.
Doctors are so awful.
They really suck. I hate doctors.
Yeah, I mean, duh, I put on weight fast. There's a baby growing in there. And I did end up having gestational diabetes, so I had to really, really lock down on my diet and everything like that and make sure that I ate properly. And I tell you right now, I've never in my life have ever eaten better than when I was pregnant, because I had another life to care about. And so after I had her, me and her dad continued to try to keep our relationship going. But about 2.5 years in, he told me that the flame was dead, but that he would stay with me because of Aria. And so I tried my best to try to make things work for about a couple months, and then finally I just told him on the phone one day, I said, "Can you tell me right now, do you honestly love me?" And he said, "No." I said, "Then we have no reason to get together." So he kind of put me in a position where I had to break up with him, and when I did that, he started saying some really, really nasty things to me in order to hurt me. And one of those particular nasty things that really, really stuck with me was this man who told me he liked me big, this man who spent time on the phone with me encouraging me to eat things, to gain weight, suddenly started telling me that I had gained too much weight, that I had cellulite, that it was ugly, that he couldn't stand me, that I wasn't attractive. And that just absolutely crushed me. And so I spent months, every day, stepping in front of the mirror, getting naked and looking for the cellulite that he was talking about. It took me months, every day, looking in the mirror, turning around, looking and looking and looking. And I don't know what happened, but I ended up kind of reconnecting with my friends that I had online. I did kind of go back to the world that I had known that had relations to people that liked bigger women, but it was more, for me, it was more the support network through these people who could just say that I was beautiful, and then them saying it and me looking in there looking for my problems, my mistakes, my horrible areas, and then one day something snapped and I looked in the mirror and I said, what am I looking for? It's not there. What is there is actually kind of nice. And started spending months after that looking for the things that I liked about myself. And it didn't matter what it was. It could be that I particularly liked my nipple that day, or maybe I liked my knee, or maybe it was my nose. But I started trying to look every day in the mirror to find something that I could appreciate that day. Um, and so I kept that up, and I did continue to be on these sites where people tended to prefer women bigger. And through that, met a lot of people, and they did. They did. I mean, I posted pictures. They said nice things, and for a little while, I needed that extra support. I needed it until finally I realized, like, wait a minute, I really don't care what these men think. I I like me. I like me. I'm beautiful. I'm wonderful. And started thinking about, again, all the things I liked about myself, and even the nice things that, like, kids say that you don't even think about. Like, I remember moments where, like, when my little brother would hug me and say, "You're soft like a marshmallow." Like, everything about that is so kind. And then having my daughter tell me that all the time. You know, she thinks I'm beautiful, and she wouldn't be able to look me in the face and tell me that I'm beautiful if I didn't believe that I was.
I think
So,
that one thing that we were a little worried about, in our admin discussion, especially, Valentine's Day love and stuff like that, is, fat admirers and, sex and attraction equaling like love and stuff like that. And I really liked with your story that, you started with people who found your body attractive and ended with like the end of that relationship, which led you to loving yourself. And I think that's really important, because no matter what anybody else thinks, it's not going to, make you love yourself. And I love that, like, just looking at yourself, led to loving yourself. I mean, I think that a lot of people have a hard time. I know that there were times in my life when I couldn't look at myself in a mirror naked, and I think that that's really awesome.
thanks. Yeah, I mean, of course, there's always going to be good days and bad days. I mean, but the more the time that I spent with myself and finding out all of the things that I could love about myself led me to finding somebody who loves everything about me. Because clearly, I'm not. I dated men who told me that they loved absolutely everything about me, but my body. They loved everything about me, but that they could deal with my body because I was so wonderful and I was so awesome that they would just deal with my body. At the end of the day, I'm like, my body is not something to deal with. I mean, my body is beautiful. My body is wonderful, just as much as my mind, my personality is beautiful and wonderful. And if you can't see that, then maybe we should just be friends. Because at the end of the day, a relationship, it has intimacy and sexual attraction. And if that's not for you, then we can hang out. We don't need to do the nasty. So now I spent like two good solid years single until I found a man who really gets me, and that's why he earned the whole package, and he had to earn it.
I gave up on the men. 'Cause all of them are anything. They're just like, oh, you're so beautiful, and they just want like, oh, send me naked pictures, send me this, or and even like on OkCupid, the guys near me, like I clearly put on there like I'm just looking for friends. I'm not looking for a hookup, and they're all like, oh, you're close. We should get together. We could do this, and we could watch a movie, and we could like fool around. I'm like, no, I'm not just looking. I want to be friends with you first. I want to, you know,
Build a relationship, yeah.
yeah, I don't jump into it where like, oh, let's have sex and then decide that, oh yeah, maybe we should kind of date. That doesn't work for me. If it works for someone else, that's fine, but not for me. It's not.
Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up with so many people making fun of me from the time I moved because I grew up in Chicago, from the time I moved from the city of Chicago to the suburbs in second grade, I had so many people making fun of me. It was just like constantly, all the time. That as an adult, when people weren't making fun of me, still in my head. I picture everyone is staring at me, and they're talking about my weight. And it took me to go when I went to the beach in my bathing suit for the first time down here 2 years ago, I think, almost. That I was like, so no one cares. No one looked at me. No one even looked at me twice. And I'm like, oh, so no one cares. Okay, so I can wear my swimsuit. And then when we changed afterwards in the bathroom, I wore a sundress. And I was like, no one cares. And that finally, like, I don't know, that made me like myself more. That sounds weird, but like that nobody was still making fun of me. There are still people who do, and there are people that stare. But I've seen people and I've turned around them and like, you want to take a picture? It'll last longer.
Yeah, I feel like the childhood stuff sticks with you. You get older, and I mean, not to be critical of our culture, but everyone's pretty self-absorbed. Nobody's really thinking about the person across the street. Like, let's just be honest. But we all think they are. We all think they're looking at us. And
that in your head.
and maybe I was the butt of some jokes, when I was younger, but if people are thinking those things about me now, I have no idea, because nobody's ever approached me about my body to my face. Maybe some mean people on the internet, but to my face, out on the street, I feel like nobody even looks twice.
I heard this quote. It was something like, what people think of you isn't your business. Like,
Yeah.
and that's really true.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, I did actually have somebody in public once say something to my face. It was this beautiful little girl. She's just sitting, like, we're in Costco, and she's at one line, and I'm in another line, and she just looks at me and points her beautiful long little finger and goes, "Fat!" at the top of her lungs. At the absolute top of her lungs. "She's so fat, Daddy! Why is she so fat?"
Oh my gosh.
There's always a kid.
Yeah.
There's always a kid.
It's always a kid.
I've had the kid.
It was about 9 months ago, maybe almost a year at this point. And like, so on the inside, I'm trembling. On the inside, it's everything old, everything icky. I have an icky past that I may get into, but right now I'm going to talk about that positive moment, because it turned into a positive thing. I went and I stopped, and it was like, like everything in me was like, it was fight or flight, and I went over, and she starts crying. Her father looks really embarrassed, and he's like apologizing profusely, and she starts crying because she knows she shouldn't have done that. And I like lean down, and I'm like, you shouldn't do that, because first of all, fat's not a bad word. And she's crying really loud, and I'm like, and I hold her hand, and I'm like, but it's not fair to hurt people's feelings. It's not nice. And she just starts like sniffling, and we kind of like look at each other for a second, and she sort of like stops, and I was like, and I looked at her father, and I was like, everybody's a person. And I just like went back to my line and paid for my purchases. And like once I got in the car, I was shaking and like crying for a second, but like I felt like I did the right thing, and I felt like, maybe that was something that a couple years ago I would have just freaked out and possibly not even paid for my purchases. I would have just ran.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what I would have done a few years ago, but I don't think it would have been that. I don't think that would have been the healthy, that was a fairly healthy response.
Hi, so this video got a little unexpectedly long, and for that reason we're going to be cutting it into 2 separate parts, and we'll post the second part next week. Thank you so much for watching this video, though. Like, subscribe. You can follow us on Tumblr at fatgrltalk. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter. We don't really use either of those social media platforms too much just yet, but we're still working on it. But leave us comments and share your experiences with us. Thank you so much for watching.